Welcome back, everyone, to another session of
Hey.
Yes, You. Yes, You. Okay.
Oh.
Thank you so much for joining us another week. We're so happy that you can make it back to see and hear all that we have to share and bring this week for BSU. Okay. So this week, is Juneteenth. This upcoming Friday, we will actually get the opportunity to do a virtual Juneteenth. Make sure you click on it, check it out. We will have it posted here so you can know where to go for that virtual opportunity. I personally am super excited because usually Juneteenth is on a Sunday, is when we typically celebrate it in our local community. It's typically at City Park, put on every year by African Heritage Inc. Huge celebration, fun time, great food, vendor booths, performances, all that amazing jazz. But this year, due to COVID-19, we actually get to celebrate on the actual day. Hey!
Yes.
Which is June 19th. So I'm super excited. Everybody make sure you get out and support local and go to a soul food restaurant, get some soul food. Okay. Anyway, keeping it serious though, Juneteenth is a huge part of our culture. And we're just here to bring you a few fun facts today.
Yeah, okay. So Juneteenth, I have a note card with all of my facts on it. Juneteenth is a celebration that broke out when slavery was abolished, when enslavement was abolished in the U.S. And so the beginning of Juneteenth is 1865. But the reason why it's its own celebration and different from celebrating the Emancipation Proclamation is because the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed 2 years before that. But because of the war and because of transportation that was really different than ours and communication that was really different than ours, and because of, I think, concentrated efforts of plantation owners to not free the enslaved people, that information didn't spread very quickly in the South. So Juneteenth is a celebration of the day that it actually did get to the town of Galveston, Texas, 2 years after it was signed. And this happened maybe 80 years after the first state abolished slavery. That was Pennsylvania in 1780. But it didn't become the law of the land in word, if not deed, until the 1800s. And so that's what we're celebrating, that even in the midst of continued unfairness, we, like our people, made a celebration and found joy and excitement and gratitude, even in a terrible situation, that has continued. And I'll get to that in a minute, but that's your general history of Juneteenth.
Mm-hmm. And how funny it is that we as a community, we as Black Americans are still able to find joy in a celebratory moment in something so devastatingly awful, because they didn't know what they was going to do when they got free. They had no resources, they had no job, they had no income, they had no housing. You know, you're freed, you the massa been providing you housing this whole time and taking care of your, if we can call it that, needs. And now they had no way to support themselves. But in spite of it all, that says a lot, that you would rather be stuck and starving to death than to be enslaved. So that you're going to celebrate. Oh, I'm free now. I don't have no food. Because, you know, many of us would not be celebrating today if we did not have food and housing and shelter and a job. We would not be out there dancing with our pencil skirts on. No, we would not. So I think that that speaks volumes for the adjustment in our culture in that moment.
Yeah. I think just when I hear about Juneteenth, and just like you said, Dennetra, the whole celebration about something that was so tragic, I think, celebrating it now is just, educating ourselves with the history behind Juneteenth, and just kind of what we can do as a people, and even to be more specific, as a Black community, to continue to push forward from way back when, continue to make those strides, to make, those efforts, and just, making it far here in life. And it makes me think about just Juneteenth and how I learned about it, because I did not learn about it in school. And I was talking about this with some of my family members. None of us learned about it in school. It was almost like a word of mouth kind of thing. And I remember when my cousin, who was younger than me, we were growing up, and he was going to a Juneteenth celebration in Milwaukee. And when he said Juneteenth, I asked him again to repeat itself, because I couldn't understand June. I never heard of the word Juneteenth. And I was like, it sounds like June. It sounds like he's saying 19. And I asked him, what are you saying? So he said the name again, Juneteenth. I can't remember if he told me what the celebration was about, or if I went to go ask an adult that was around, one of the elders, what is Juneteenth? What does that mean? So then I got the understanding of, this is the day, that it was said that the slaves were freed, and it's a celebration. So just from that point on, even again being young and only knowing that much of it, I was like, okay, but never heard about it in school. There was never any holidays where businesses were closed and it was almost like we're forced to go celebrate. It was none of that. So now that I'm older and I can make my own decisions, I do make it my duty to go out and celebrate Juneteenth every single year. And I really make it intentional to spend within the Black community on Juneteenth, around Juneteenth, after Juneteenth, because we came a long way. We still have a long way to go, but we came a long way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree with that. You asked a great question, Tori, of when did you first hear about it? And I love to hear from all of you about how you first heard about Juneteenth. And how was it described? Was it an educator? Was it one of your teachers who told you about it? Was it one of us who told you about it? And by us, I mean the STAR team, or Miss Keira from the Boys and Girls Club, or, was it just another Black person, a family member, and how did they describe it to you? For me personally, I heard about it in college during my undergrad. If anyone has had any personal conversation with me, you may recall me saying my whole college transcripts was African American studies, psychology, because that's what I got my degree in, and anthropology. Those were the things that always intrigued me and interested me when I was doing my undergrad. And I had a phenomenal educator. My professor was the bomb. He was just amazing. I know I dated myself, the bomb. Do we even say that still? But he was great, and he dropped a little bit of, just a little nugget of information, but I never saw any celebratory moments for it when I lived in California. It was only when I moved here, and African Heritage Inc. haven't missed a beat. They put it on every year at City Park, and we've been, as a family, every year, celebrating such a monumental day that's a part of Black history.
Yeah, it was actually, I didn't hear about it in growing up in California either. I heard about it in college when I moved here, because City Park is right next to Lawrence. And so I was like, it was often on the same day as the graduation. So I was like, is that just a really big graduation party? It is a really big party, but it's about freedom. And at Juneteenth right now, coming at this period in time, makes me think about what freedom is, right? So in 1865, we were struggling toward a specific goal, which was to have freedom in a specific sense. And I think when we discovered, there's a historian named Antoinette Harrell, and she's a historian and a genealogist. She discovered in the 1960s, right, during the civil rights movement, that there were still people in the Deep South who had just been bound to the land and had been enslaved by white landowners, and hadn't been freed until 1962, 1965. And at the same time, there was that, and then the civil rights, which we were struggling for a new definition of freedom. And I feel like this moment in history, we're really looking at, unfortunately, we're still fighting to have freedom from, right? Freedom from and freedom to walk down the street, freedom to sleep in our own beds, freedom to, have these basic things. But Juneteenth is also a reminder that we always have freedom to have joy. Even if people don't want to give it to us, we can go ahead and take that freedom because it belongs to us.
Yes. It's funny you should say, I'm so sorry. Go, Tori.
You kind of, you can go, and then I'll just jump in right after you because you were kind of a little bit in there already.
It's so funny that you should use those keywords, freedom, because originally Juneteenth was called Freedom Day. It was called Freedom Day, then it moved to Juneteenth Independence Day before it just became Juneteenth. And before I passed the talking stick to Tori, it's funny because I had always heard that same phenomenal professor that I was just talking about. He had said that Juneteenth was originally, it was just kind of we know, of course, that it's a mix of June and 19th, but at the time, because we all know, unfortunately, African Americans were denied the right to read. So they didn't know what the day was. They just knew it was sometime in June, sometime around, one of them teen days. And so that's how it was merged. The funniest thing is I was really looking for something, a piece of fact to back that up, even though I knew in my heart, I've heard that from my college professor. I was looking for something, but I didn't find anything. And that speaks to something I've said before about being a part of history and growing up through things and seeing how it's presented to the public 50 years, 20 years, however long later, and how so much stuff is omitted and how stuff is beefed up that we wouldn't beef up, or stuff is included that, like, who cares about that, part. That's not what the important part is, but it's one of those pieces that how I think it's interesting that when our history, and when I say our, I mean Black history, when Black history is written, the narrative is always, I won't say always, but is often reshaped and remolded to minimize the part that's horrible. And just, okay, I'm going on a tangent and I'm gonna get off my soapbox. I'm done. Go ahead, Tori. Go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to add, like both of you said, the whole freedom part of it. And it's interesting to think because June 19th or Juneteenth comes before July 4th. So it's interesting to think that at a period of time, America got its freedom from another country, yet there were still enslaved people here. So that just, for me, that's almost like another reason to celebrate Juneteenth, and to just put that extra emphasis on celebrating it and learning more about it. And no, you don't have to be Black to celebrate that thing. Just like if you live in America, you don't have to be American to celebrate, the 4th of July. But I'm saying that to say that Juneteenth isn't just Black history. It's a part of American history and should be appreciated and celebrated as such, for all of us to learn about it, which will eventually make us all more well-rounded people, because the more you know about other things, it just makes you, or at least I think it makes you more of a well-rounded individual. So we challenge you all to do some research about Juneteenth. Think about attending the virtual Juneteenth celebration. And I know there's different cities, different areas that have their different celebrations of Juneteenth coming up. So just keep your eyes peeled for that. And we challenge you to just find out more information about Juneteenth.
Before we go, Keira, do you have any last parting words for all of our amazing viewers who joined us again this week?
I think I've said what is important to me, but one thing that I do want to lift up is that I got a lot of my facts from the Black Youth Project, and you can go visit theblackyouthproject.com and learn so much stuff, like so much amazing stuff about our community. So go read, feast on that knowledge, and let us know what you find.
Yes. Anything else, Tori?
I don't have anything else. I just can't wait to celebrate Juneteenth this year, so I am excited for that. Yes.
Celebrating it on the actual day this year. Hey, I'm excited for that. I like to celebrate all holidays that pertain to our culture. Kwanzaa, Adunde, Juneteenth. What am I missing? MLK, of course.
Month.
Yes, I think all that is important. Somebody said to me one time, "You still wearing your head wrap? It's March." I'm like, I'm Black all year, so I can wear it whenever, and that's how I feel about these celebratory moments. It's nice that, like Tori said, that we can incorporate other folks into it to help them understand why this is important, because as Tori mentioned, this happened here on American soil. This is about American history, and everyone should want to know your history, good, bad, and or indifferent. But when it's a celebratory moment, I'm super excited about that as a Black American, that I can come out and rejoice and pay homage to and appreciate my culture. Yes. So we thank you for joining us again this week. We hope to see you next week. And we are still looking for those emails about your input and what you've learned and what you want to share, and that what we can share back with everyone. We're waiting for that. So
yes.
And it's a new email, right? It's a new email.
Yes. The new email will be listed for BSU at BG at bgclubfoxvalley.org. But we're gonna put that on there for you to make sure you get the spelling right. Don't put any extra S's and such. We want to hear from you, and it'll be us that will be responding. It won't be some random moderator. It will be us. So we want to hear what your thoughts are and what you find. We've given you a number of actionable items. So what have you been doing? Let us know.
Yes, there you go.
All right, thanks for joining. Until next time.
Yeah, see you later. Have a good one.